Well, this is Dr. Lemmon, and this is my chat for July. Traditionally, I toss out some of this year. I'm tossing out some concepts and ideas and kind of explaining at least why these ideas I tried to implement into a training center I had for a while. So how do we put those classes together? So I've got two topics I want to throw it together. I'm going to try to keep this short. Um, I did get a question back, and I still get some confusion with people on the idea of what a truth is and what a possibility of potential is. And I think it's really important because we got to utilize both. In other words, we came down here and we were what in the very beginning, I don't know, living on a savannah somewhere looking for food, right? Food and hopefully a date. Um, and that was kind of the the context of what life amounted to. As it got more and more complex, we started seeing things, we started building language. A word is simply, a symbol is simply a feeling of something. One of your senses, your five senses perceive something. So it produces what they call a symbol. You have an image or something up there that symbolizes like, wow. So when you saw a tree for the first time, then you said, oh, I remember that from last time I saw it. So then you started to create language to explain that, to shortcut that, so that a group of people could integrate. The very beginning, survival came from integration. That's why we have survived so much longer than some of the other animals on the planet. We integrate, we share. So that's where it comes from. We put the language together. And then for us in the beginning, if we had a word for tree, then that was tree. If someone else had a different word for tree because they belonged to a different tribe, why we would either teach them our technique, learn theirs, or kill them, and then we were right. And those were actually options that we did then, and to some sad degree still do today. So when we start to talk about a truth, we're talking in the context of the logical structure, the name for symbols, and all the data and the relationships we built. We have a tree, and then we have a lot of different types of trees, and then we have associated data about trees, and that's how our memory and all our information gets stored, and that's how we advanced as humans. We started with an integration, and we started to putting together. As we move in the direction of becoming a global people, then that means that we're going to have to do a lot more integration. And it's probably going to fall apart in the beginning for the first couple hundred years, which is maybe what we're seeing. And then it'll start to maybe come together, hopefully. All right. And that's my premise coming in the front door. So when I say, I believe in past lives? Do I think that, do I believe in dead relatives? All that is what I classify as phenomena. Does it have an influence upon us? Yes. Is it true in the context of our language and our skill as a human race? No, it's not true in that context. It doesn't mean that it's not an influence. Last month, I did a workshop or talk here, and I talked about what a lot of people call healing. I call it influence. I, I believe that we're influencing someone, and I think innately the ability to heal and fix is somewhere in there. We just don't have enough sensors, enough equipment. This piece is very conserved. First law of thermodynamics, the law of conservation. It doesn't do a lot of useless things. Not even a whole brain's not integrated, just part of it is. So there's a there's never going to be a reckoning between all these bizarre phenomena because they don't play out the same for everybody. But when you get to the logical system, it plays out more or less the same. There's continuity in it. So that's why we have two systems at play. Hopefully someday all the world will think in one congruent system. We'll still have phenomena, but most certainly we'll be able to get along and integrate a lot better. That's the goal. Okay. So two things I talk about. One that I've discovered from working with people for a long time is some people just are not very certain at all. And there is tons of books on certainty. Before that, it was all about confidence. Then it became certainty, right? And so all of that. And then there's lots of books against certainty, saying how it's arrogant and obnoxious and people with too much certainty, but they never put a gradient on it, at least in the correct contents. When people, I have worked with a lot of people, when they come in, they're lacking enough confidence to be able to step forward and say, let me try, let me have a turn. If they can't get to that place, they get lost in the shuffle. Not only do they get lost in the shuffle, they never become that person. And so if you're going to go forward in life, if you're going to develop in life, if you're going to experience something new in life, you're going to get out there and do whatever it is you want to do, or fly to the moon or whatever, invent something, or just get married and have kids, whatever that is, you need to be able to be the person that says, this is what I want, not the person that nobody else counts but me. That's too arrogant or too certain or all those terms, right? So I like to call it arrogance because if they're going to call it arrogance, let's just go with it. Let's just say, I think you should be 51% arrogant, enough to say, let me try, let me have a turn. Not to say, I know everything, get out of my way. No, enough to say, let me try. Engage. If you don't engage, you have something which I teach in my advanced classes, which is called you lack structure. Structure means in the physical form, I lack the ability to be able to do that. So I have friends that I go out walking and they say, yeah, I should go out walking, but I'm 100 pounds overweight and I can't walk very far. And it's like, so really, I would say the problem with trying to influence them is they don't have enough certainty about who they are. They don't have the structure to be the person that can walk a mile. So they're not defining that. They don't have, they probably have a story that they're anchored into. Stories is another whole thing. The way we process and interface with stories, part of it's true and part of it's not true, but it gives us a chance to put us in it. We don't see us in it. So if I say I just went for a walk around the block, I didn't see me walking around the block. My eyes are pointed forward. So I put it into a story. So maybe I just imagine it. Maybe I didn't really do it. But nonetheless, I will tell the story with whatever level of certainty or arrogance I can muster about me walking around the block. So that's the way this mechanism starts to process and work. We're not very well informed on that. There are lots of books, tons of thousands of books out there that tell all this over and over again. And people still say, do you have a book you can recommend I should read? I say, God, I could give you a list of 40. All say the same thing. So you have to have that first level of being able to say, yes, here I am. Okay. The next level that you need to do is you need to be able to have that integration. In other words, you have to get out of the way and let someone else show up on your Richter scale. So every now and then, right? It's okay to be 51% arrogant, but every now and then someone shows up and they want to tell you something or guide you or help you. You have to say, I think I know how to do it, but let's go over it again. Reinform me, help me here. It's not a problem doing all that. You have to be able to flex a little bit. That's why I'm saying 51%. If you were 65%, you might not be able to do that because you already think you know it all. So it's very, very important to calibrate that. It's not a gauge that we have, so it's not very logical. But it's a gauge because we can see how we react to people. And if you're walking around and think everybody's dumb but you're probably way over 51%, right? But most certainly at 51%, you would say, I don't know any more than the rest of you guys. Well, let me try, right? Engagement is what we're trying to get to you. That's the first thing. The second thing is integration. Integration just means that I call it entrainment because we have a word called empathy in the English language, but it has a meaning really strongly associated with sympathy. Other countries in the world have a multitude of different meanings for empathy. They have a lot of words. They mean different contexts of it. So I had to find a different word that I am not interested in sympathy. I'm interested in being able to allow another person to communicate to me. I need to get me out of the way. So saying that is one thing. Setting up a little practice for people to do that is a different. So I started doing intuitive training, not because you could find out that, you had a past life, with one of the 12 apostles or some silliness like that. All those things are phenomena. They're not logical, right? So when we start to play with that, the tool we're trying to integrate in is just simply that integration. It takes about 6 months. In the very beginning, you sit there and you look at someone and you sit there, no stories, and you look at someone. And bottom line, if you're just kind of looking at them, all of a sudden something will pop up. You'll feel something come up. And when I say feel something, it might be a smell, it might be a sound in the room, It might be a picture that you see. It's going to be some type of information. If you just start talking about the information that comes up, you'll find all of a sudden you just linked with that person. That's just what you did, just link to it. So some people would say, oh, you got to match it the same color, or you got to match a crown chakra, or I don't care how you do it. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Protocol doesn't make any difference to me. I just sit there and you sit with someone. And you just sit next to someone in a bus. And what are you doing? You're defending yourself. You're running stories saying, I hope he's not a terrorist. I hope you don't have a bomb in that bag. I hope he's not going to rob me. I'm sorry, that's not an integrated piece. You need to shut this thing up. You need to just relax. You need to attend to them a minute and lose all this. And then all of a sudden you'll find, wow, you might start a conversation with them and you might make a new friend. That's integration. And so I used to teach for 6 months. They would sit there and they would just look at someone and then they would want to go into their story. They would see somebody falling out of a tree and they said, oh, I fell out of a tree once. I broke my arm. And they're going into their story. And I'm like, stop. No stories. When you look at someone and you see someone fall out of a tree, you just say, wow, did you ever fall out of a tree? And you let them tell their story. Now, the advantage to that is that you have a story and now you hear them telling a story and it's the same picture. Do you see how that picture has at least two meanings, probably a million meanings? So if you find your meaning and their meaning, you've expanded your range. You just doubled it. And now you're integrating. You're integrating because you see their possibilities and you, back and forth, yours, theirs, back and forth. You expand everything out. That's the whole idea. The goal is to see someone and rather than judge them, chastise them, point out their shortcomings, take a breath and say, wow, and get this ego out of the way for a second. I know, I want you at 51%, but put it aside for a minute. Engage with them. Notice what's it feel like to be them. Don't become them. You don't need their problems. You got your own. And you're not here necessarily to solve their problems. You're here to be able to solve the fact that you have a matching experience that's not totally congruent. We're all running around thinking we all think the same, which makes a problem because then we judge everyone else for not acting because they should be thinking like me, they should be acting like me. That's nothing but problems and trouble. We see that everywhere in the world. We got to get over that. So we sit there and we want to be able to have that sense of integration. That was it. So when people email me, want to know if I believe in all this stuff, I think all this stuff is very useful. Is it real? Can I feel this stuff? Can you feel this stuff? Sure you can. Is it logical? Should I write a book about it? No, I probably wouldn't write a book about it with you because it would wind up somewhere gathering dust in the back corners. A few people might read it, but I'm not sure that they're going to be at that 51%. A lot of people get lost in those stories so that they can hide out in them. And my background in psychology, it was kind of like I started working with people and I realized they really needed to sit up. They didn't need someone telling them. They needed to be able to talk. They need to come out. They need to get to that 51% so they can define who they are or get down to that 51% so they could quit with their story about how amazing they are and start getting kind of real because nobody's perfect. That's just the way it is. It's not designed to be that way. And it's also conserved. So to make that find what the value is, people say, is there any value in getting a psychic reading? Why not? If you want to do that and it entertains you, go ahead. Are you going to find a truth? Well, I'm sorry. I think you should go to some lab tests. You're looking for a truth in a logical world. But if you're looking for a phenomena, something you can feel and something that might give you some clues of where to go to learn more and ask better questions, then it'd be wise. I know that people like to have concrete answers. This is the way, this is what's right. I'm sorry, I don't do that, right? It's not concrete. It's not set up, right? So that's the whole nature of the problem we have in judging other people. We want to have a correct right way. We tried that in a traditional evolutionary belt for many, many years. And all it did was create war after war after war. So it created conflict because they don't think like you and act like you. We really got rid of them or we got to do something with them. It's like very, very sad. What we have to do is we have to unite. Some way, shape, or form we have to unite. I have no idea. I'm not going to live long enough to figure it out, I'll guarantee you. But for the people watching this, if you start to pay attention and start to pay attention to people, don't judge them first, attend to them, and you'll start to get feelings. Now you're in a world of phenomena. Now you might learn something like, wow, that person's sad, or look what's going on with them. That's kind of interesting. You don't have to fix it. There's no obligation. You just start to notice. As you do that, you start to notice, wow, I have similar experiences. The range is bigger. All right. So I think I'm going to get all this in under a half an hour. I know I talk kind of fast. All right. Any questions, go ahead and send them to Chris, CHRISS, two S's, at wizardscatch.com, WIZARDSCACHE. This is Wizards Catch YouTube video. So that you're looking at. So it's a Wizards Catch channel. So I'd be glad to answer your questions. I may send you back an email, or I may have to call you, or I may do it in this format here. I'm trying to bunch a lot of things together. I know it's for a lot of people, it's kind of like they brought up in one way of thinking and it's not working real good for them, and they're trying to get out. Another thing is that we have lost, thanks to health conditions on the planet, we have lost a lot of that integration. We were locked out, which is a disaster for humans. We lose integration, we just become everybody's enemy, and we really need to get back into that. So I did enough preaching for today. Okay. So I want to thank you very much. This is the chat for July. And so I'm seeing if I can't keep them shorter, and we can move forward in this and see what the heck I come up with for August. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. It's been fun.